And welcome back to Sng Now, which is the weekly show we do for you, showing life around the studio and all the wonderful things that we do here, with the hope that you will be encouraged to join our Patreon account page and become a patron of the arts at SNG Studios, where you will be able to see articles about how to make things ranging from props to prosthetics to creature making to costumes. I'm leaving stuff out, but a lot of things, plus in-depth videos in several parts. Like, for instance, we have the Moonwatcher builds up right now, where you can see how you build a creature mask with articulated expressions and lips, movement, and all the steps you go through to do that, and a whole lot more. So I want to welcome Jennifer and Rob here today, old friends of mine. Rob and I have been working together for years in the motion picture industry, and Rob and I worked on things like Ghostbusters and Fright Night together, and a lot of other stuff, and some stuff we can't remember, but
yeah, no,
we were talking about that.
But yeah, most often Ghostbusters. That was our big heyday, I suppose.
It was, and what a wild time that was. So, and Jennifer, you're quite the talent yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you have done?
Well, between Rob and I, we do a lot of things. I'm a costume designer and he does special makeup effects. So we combine our artwork together and have done a lot of films, Power Rangers, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. We did Disney Tokyo Seas.
Oh yeah, all that stuff you do for those theme parks that you can't say the name of the theme park, but contractually they're like, oh no, little fairies do it in the night, but in reality they hire us and we do all the work.
And I worked on Honey, I Blew Up the Kids too. Did you know
really?
that?
Did you?
Yeah,
No,
I was working with Bob and Denny Sokotak, working on miniatures. And doing some
you were
effect
miniatures
shots.
and she was giant.
Yeah, I was
yeah.
doing the 112 and 56 foot
Wow.
baby stuff.
We were building the big wall and the cowboy leg, and we built the Lotus, and did all kinds of stuff.
They took 3-inch long, bright red fur fabric and shaved channels into it, real big long ones, to simulate giant corduroy for the kids' overall bib. And
yeah, I wondered about all that stuff.
And they had to
And we also
weave strings and ropes together in order to make thread in scale. You
Right.
know?
And the tennis shoes, the
All the giant
shoelaces,
tennis shoes and things like that, yeah.
sitting there weaving tennis shoes.
Wow, wow. And of course, you've worked on some pretty interesting costumes too, like the first Batman movie.
Yeah, well, not first one. Batman Returns. Still Michael Keaton, but
I worked on that one too.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
were
one with the
in
penguin
stuff.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. I was
See what I
in the
mean?
bat shop.
We've worked together even when we didn't know we were working together, which is pretty funny. So
That's right.
you also have a school and a studio.
Yeah, I'm
Tell us a little about that.
Here's the deal. I've taught for a lot of schools.
Yeah, you have.
And the problem with them is that you don't ever work in a classroom. You get taught in classrooms, but nobody ever works in a classroom. So I said, what we need is a lab. We need a facility like what you've got and everything to actually teach somebody how it is to work on the job. And at the same time, there's jobs going on around them and everything. So it really gives them the full effect of being on the job. And we treat your project that you do in the class as its own job. And it's limited to 6 students, so it's a very kind of private experience that I feel gives them a little bit more head start than it does being in a classroom.
Oh, it definitely does. And I've been there many times, and it's a really fabulous facility that they've built on their property. A really great studio.
All 15,000 bolts of it.
Yeah, no, but it's really, really good.
To prove it.
Absolutely. But
what's the name of it?
It's Rob Burman's laboratory is my my school.
Our studio is Sticks
our art
and
studio
Stones.
is Sticks and Stones.
And you
because
have
we knew everybody talked behind our back.
you have a website?
Yeah, Rob Burman's Laboratory, Sticks and Stones Effects, and Rubberware. Rubberware is our foam latex company.
Yeah, tell them about the Rubberware too, because
that-
that's pretty neat.
Well, you know, you never used to be able to buy just a nose or a scar, a cut, or you know, something like that,
Or
over the
Spock
counter.
ears.
Exactly. They you had to have them custom made, and they cost you $600 and all this stuff like that. And now you can go to any of our distributors, which we've got like 45 or something distributors.
Yeah,
around the
your
world
stuff is
right now.
everywhere.
And yeah, at Hong Kong,
Every time I go to
Australia,
Burman's,
everywhere,
it's there, yeah.
So they and now you can buy. You know, there are companies that sell you like a witch face or you know, stuff like that. But then no matter what color you paint it, it's always still that witch face.
Right.
Well, now you can, for the same price, go and buy 5 or 6 Rubberware pieces and mix and match something that's unique in your own design. That's not just somebody else's piece
And it's
painted differently.
pretty reasonably priced when you consider the amount of work that it
Absolutely.
takes that goes into sculpting, molding, running the foam every day. And Rob's got a lot of molds laid out, and they run the rubber in it. It's still it's a very expensive process, and what you get is a very professional studio product, just like the studio professionals use in the film.
I'm a studio professional and I use it in
exactly,
film, so
exactly.
ta-da!
And of course, you come from a long line of studio professionals, like your dad.
Who?
Tom Burman.
Oh,
you may have
right.
heard of
I don't
him.
think I remember
Worked on
that.
Planet of the Apes and
right, yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers and all kinds of great stuff.
He's got great
Island
kids.
of Dr. Moreau. Yeah, he's got great kids. Both very successful. So, well, thanks for coming today, you guys. It was really cool to have you here. We've been here before. You've been to
Yeah.
our parties, and we've been friends for years. But it's
Always
kind of
love to
neat
be
to
with
get
you.
you on this, which we sort of snatched you for. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
So, anyway, we're going to show you what's going on around here this week. It's been a busy week, and we'll do that coming up next. So, as promised, I will show you what's going on around here. And of course, we're doing an in-depth build of the Mobius 2001: A Space Odyssey Discovery model. And this week's been kind of a hard week. We had a shoot and we had visitors and lots of stuff, and my birthday on Monday, and so we didn't get as much done as we normally do around here at SNG. But I did get all these modules built, and these modules are composed of 5 separate parts. 2 end caps, 2 interlocking parts that go on top, and a base part, the flat one on the bottom. And on each one of these, that's how it is. And there's 6 of these, 9, 9, 18, 18. And if you add up the parts, you know, like 18 times 5 for each one. The only way to do this was to put them all in the cups. I had them all in these little cups, and I had them all marked, and and then pre-sanded and everything, so I could assembly line put them together. And of course, I've been starting building the spine, and this kit goes together very, very well. So we've been working on that. We're going to not finish it next week, but it'll be assembled, and it'll be at the point where we're going to start painting it and stuff. And all that's being covered in our in-depth video on this build, which of course, if you're a patron of our SNG patron account, then you can see it in its entirety. Here on Voyager, you'll notice there's no light leaks. They're gone. They're all gone, and so everything's been filled and stuff. So what I'm going to be doing next week on this is sanding all the squadron putty that I used to light block with, because it sands so easily. I can get the detail back. And then I'm going to touch up the paint, because in the in-depth video I talk about how every section of this model is pre-painted before the different sections are assembled together. Now, there are a lot of people who don't like to do it that way. I do, because I don't have to worry about, after it's primered, masking and taping all the windows, and I don't have to get it upside down. And even though this model comes off completely, it makes it so much easier, because already 90% of it's painted, and all you have to do is touch up little parts and little areas of it by sanding. You can see this spot here will be sanded, that'll be sanded, and I'll go with the airbrush, tape it off and brush it, and it's done. And then we're going to put the decals and stuff on it. So upstairs, we'll go up there. And of course, here is my Aquila, or Aquila as it's called. Ooh, that was scary. You gotta love these bases on these lamps. They're not big enough. And I've been, making all the parts from scratch, and I've been, I started by taking from the plans the ribs and isolating them and printing them out to the right scale. and then mounting them to a very thick hard plywood and making these templates. And with the templates, I am then putting that up against balsa wood like this and using a very sharp X-Acto blade going around and cutting out the parts exactly for every single rib. So every one of them is handmade the way they used to do it before we had laser cutters and CNC machines. And you can see how beautiful it comes out. This is the real satisfying part of making a model this way. Sure, I could contact a laser cutter or a CNC guy and say, here's my plans, and he'll put it in the computer and have it all done for me and get it back. In the time he did all of that, I got a whole wing panel built. This wing panel is about 50 inches long. Of course, the glider's gonna be 100 inches wingspan, actually a little more if you count the fuselage in there. And it's beautiful, it's really straight and true. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing things by hand rather than have a machine do it for me. So another thing we're gonna start doing at SNG is SNG Now podcast. This was a great idea Mary had about having podcasts, and we're going to cover a very vast array of subject matters dealing with models and props and makeup effects and costume making and special guests who are involved in the UFO field. You name it, we're going to cover it in all the interests that we have here, and we're going to have a lot of special guests on too. We're going to have people that worked in film, actors, actresses, and more. So that's coming all up. So for SNG Now podcast, this is what Mary has set up so far. Eventually we're going to have a third mic right here, so if we have a third guest. This is the mixer here, and this is the controller for the volume on the headsets that we have. And when we start doing our podcast, we'll be like this. And this filter, of course, helps us when we're saying P's and other sounds that will make it pop. I think it's called a pop filter. And so we have that. We have these beautiful mics. And we'll have a laptop over here. And of course, everything goes through that. And that will allow us to get a very well mixed sound. And then, of course, I will go into Adobe Premiere or one of the programs I have in the Adobe suite to final mix it and put music to it and for intro and backgrounds and that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited about this. Thank you, Mary. It's going to be really cool. It's sort of cool to see it all out of the box. We still need to get a few more cables and stuff, but we're well on our way. So that's pretty much what we've been up to this week, and we thank you all so much for being patrons over at Patreon, our Patreon account, and for just being supporters of SNG and loving watching the show. We love you back a whole bunch, and we'll see you next week for more fun at SNG.